We'll now proceed to the statement by the Minister of Higher Education and Training on update on current developments in universities. Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker, my cabinet colleagues and deputy ministers, Chair of the Portfolio Committee, Comrade September, and all members of the Portfolio Committee, honorable members, colleagues. We are holding this debate at the time when our universities are under the spotlight over access to post-school education based on affordability. This is so because the students, correctly so, have decided to take it upon themselves to raise their legitimate concerns about the cost of fees at universities. Honorable members, we say we have heard the call from those students with legitimate concerns, because as government, we have regarded the issue of affordability of post-school education as an important matter, and in fact, free higher education for the poor is the policy of this government. To ensure the progressive realization of the right to further education as contained in, amongst others, the Constitution, government has developed a roadmap for the transformation of universities and TVET colleges to create opportunities for access, success, financing, and support for students and institutions. We've been addressing these challenges since 1994, and we've taken a number of measures to progressively realize improved access. Deputy Speaker, let me reiterate, without any shadow of doubt, that the policy of this government has always been especially to assist academically deserving but students from poor families to ensure that they access higher education. As a result, we have made tremendous amount of progress. We have expanded access, particularly to the poor, through the National Student Financial Aid Scheme, having funded over 1.7 million students since 1994. The scheme currently supports approximately 480,000 poor undergraduate students to access higher universities, as well as students in TVET colleges. Our department has received the largest budget in the 2016-17 financial year, the largest budget increase in the 2016-2017 financial year, to the tune of 49.2 billion. This year alone, Nsfas has disbursed loans and bursaries to the tune of 14 billion rand. In this regard, we have sought to medium-term and long-term plans as part of the roadmap to transform post-school education and training. In the short term, we have announced a number of interventions to assist students who come from poor and middle-class families, and for the first time in the history of post-school education, the so-called missing middle. In the 2017 academic year, all students from families with an annual family income of up to 600,000 rands per annum, or 50,000 rand per month, will experience a no-fee increase. This means it is no fee increment in 2017 for this category of students. This will benefit more than 75% of university and college students, and in some institutions, more than 90% of students will benefit. We've also gone further and made arrangements through the National Student Financial Aid Scheme to pay the registration fees for all Nsfas funded students as an upfront payment to universities and TVET colleges in January each year. Therefore, Nsfas qualifying students will not pay any registration or upfront fees in 2017. Students from a household with an annual family income of up to 600,000 rand, the missing middle, will be allowed to register without paying any upfront or registration fees in 2017. Government has also addressed the issue of historical debt of students. All Nsfas qualifying students who were registered in 2016 having historical student debt with institution of higher education will be allowed to register in 2017. All universities will ensure that missing middle students who have historical student debt are not excluded on the basis of debt and will also be allowed to register in 2017. We also wish to draw the attention of students who are still studying or are in their first year of employment that Nsfas will only collect debt from all graduates a year after they finish their studies. This, Honorable Deputy Speaker and honorable members, for the long term, we've recently received a report from Mr. Sizwe Nxasana, the chairperson of the Nsfas board, on the development of support and funding model for poor and missing middle students. The report will go a long way in not only addressing the funding problems by poor and missing middle students, but also in addressing, amongst other challenges, Nsfas model itself. Our approach and the work that Mr. Nxasana has been doing has received support from a wide range of stakeholders in universities and outside universities, including the private sector. We are processing the Nxasana report and we will soon be presenting it to Cabinet for consideration and decision. A lot of other technical proposals have been made to my department on how we could better fund poor students in higher education. All these are being fully considered, though we have also encouraged a lot of the people to also go and present to the Fees Commission. We are also processing the report on the revised funding framework for universities, a project which was led by now Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa, and also we will actually be tabling this at an appropriate time together with various models of implementing a new funding formula for universities. The report reviews the experiences of 6 years of partial and full implementation of the current funding framework for universities. It also analyzes the current funding framework to determine whether it has functioned effectively in achieving the goals set for it at its inception. Deputy Speaker and honorable members, we have also established 3 new universities. The University of Mpumalanga, Sol Plaatje University in the Northern Cape, and Sefako Makgato Health Sciences University in Gauteng, to further increase the number of spaces in higher education and ensure the geographical spread of contact institutions. This includes the construction of 3 TVET college campuses and plan to construct a further 9. The Commission of Inquiry established by President Zuma to inquire into, report on, and make recommendations on the feasibility of a fee-free higher education and training continues to do its work. We call on all stakeholders to provide support to enable the Commission to speedily conclude its work so that it can contribute to finding long-term solutions. The Commission has undertaken to release its preliminary report in November 2016. Honorable members, our advances are clearly visible in Stats SA's latest survey. It indicates that at least part of the current pressure on university cost structures is as a result of the interventions we've made. For instance, the proportion of people over 20 years with post-school education has increased from 9.3% in 2009 to 14.1% in 2015. And also, since we established Nsfas, never before have so many students had their fees paid by government alone or combined with bursaries and support from alumni. To name just 2 examples, at the University of Johannesburg, 75% of students do not pay at all or a large part of their own fees. At Fort Hare, it is 90%. We in the department are proud of the 15.1% rise in the numbers of young people achieving tertiary qualifications since the creation of our department, though a lot still needs to be done to improve throughput and pass rates. Deputy Speaker and honorable members, the scenes we have witnessed in some of the universities have unfortunately tended to undermine the legitimate struggle of students. The scenes include violence, intimidation, and destruction of property, which our society has correctly condemned and rejected. We call on all students to isolate those who perpetuate these acts and report them to law enforcement agencies. We convened a multi-stakeholder imbizo earlier this month, which adopted a declaration essentially expressing the need for dialogue, transformation of post-school education, and the resumption of the academic program immediately. We call on all our institutions working together with SRCs to develop a central mediation and dispute resolution mechanism similar to the institutional forums within our institutions so that we can resolve disputes speedily. Honorable Deputy Speaker and honorable members, we appreciate that as we stand here this afternoon, more than 80% of our universities are functional, though we are still concerned about those that are not functional. We equally acknowledge those institutions who have been fairly stable and largely continued with their academic program. In conclusion, let us acknowledge the Vice-Chancellor's academics and university support staff who are ensuring that teaching and learning are happening in extremely difficult circumstances. Keeping our universities open is keeping our public sector open. If the 2016 trainee teachers don't graduate, about 20,000 classrooms will have no teachers at the beginning of next year. Junior doctors, those who are hoping to graduate this year, are at the forefront, at the front line of health service delivery in public sector hospitals. I want to acknowledge the difficulties that this period poses for parents who are bewildered when they consider what is taking place in institutions. Please continue to support and place faith in these institutions. In order to resolve the problems that we face, there is no other alternative except inclusive dialogue and engagement. I wish to take this opportunity to thank the President, President Zuma, for his leadership and support, the unwavering support of Ministers Pravin Gordhan, Jeff Khatebe, and the entire cabinet for the progress we've made in this regard. I also wish to thank all the other stakeholders, parents, faith-based organizations, students, traditional leadership for their support. A lasting solution has to be found. Let's all go back to class. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Buzoli.
Committee, Comrade September, and all members of the Portfolio Committee, honorable members, colleagues. We are holding this debate at the time when our universities are under the spotlight over access to post-school education based on affordability. This is so because the students, correctly so, have decided to take it upon themselves to raise their legitimate concerns about the cost of fees at universities. Government has developed a roadmap for the transformation of universities and TVET colleges to create opportunities for access, success, financing, and support for students and institutions. We've been addressing these challenges since 1994, and we've taken a number of measures to progressively realize improved access. Deputy Speaker, let me reiterate, without any shadow of doubt, that the policy of this government
We'll now proceed to the statement by the Minister of Higher Education and Training on update on current developments in universities. Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker, my cabinet colleagues and deputy ministers, Chair of the Portfolio Committee, has always been especially to assist academically deserving but students from poor families to ensure that they access higher education. As a result, we've made tremendous amount of progress. We've expanded access, particularly to the poor, through the National Student Financial Aid Scheme, having funded over 1.7 million students since 1994. The scheme currently supports approximately 480,000. Honorable members, we say we have heard the call from those students with legitimate concerns, because as government, we have regarded the issue of affordability of post-school education as an important matter, and in fact, free higher education for the poor is the policy of this government. To ensure the progressive realization of the right to further education as contained in, amongst others, the Constitution